Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 34 of the Hazy Sports Podcast. The regular season is over, the playoff bracket is set, and the quest for Lord Stanley's Grail starts tonight, Charlie. Are you fired up or what?
I'm pretty fired up. This is when every game means something. You're leaving it all out there. The schedule for today is absolutely horrible. I don't understand starting at 3 in the afternoon. And then, arguably the marquee matchup of the West Conference, they're starting at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Just bizarre, but it's here.
Everything feels a little off kilter from a timing standpoint, but I think the solution to that is just plant your ass on the couch for the day and enjoy the hockey. And hey, it's Saturday, so let's go with the flow. But yeah, things kick off about 3 hours from now in Carolina. I'm pumped. I was thinking back to I was actually in Italy on my honeymoon when the regular season started back in October. That feels like so long ago to me, and a different, literally a different world away. And it feels like that on the NHL front too, from those early days in the regular season to where we are now. So many things have changed and evolved. So it's exciting now that the playoffs are finally here.
It is crazy. I'm looking at it just from the team that I root for, and it was an absolute nightmare start. And now, as we head into the playoffs, I don't think I've been as confident in that team as I am heading into this. So crazy what a few months can do for you.
Before we get into the playoff previews here, let's put a bow on the regular season. We've got our Art Ross and Rocket Richard trophies nailed down. So McKinnon did squeak it out against Caulfield with his Rocket Richard trophy. Second 50-goal season for him and a great all-around year. And then on the Art Ross, McDavid kind of put a nice finishing emphasis on that performance with his last game of the year.
Yeah, he kind of had a nice end to the schedule there with the Blackhawks, the Sharks, Colorado sandwiched in there, but then playing a Canucks team that, fuck, I think most of them probably had flights booked for the next morning. Like that team could, I don't know if you watched any of that, but you could tell early on that team just wanted to get things finished for sure.
I just saw the highlights of it, but the one thing that stood out to me often does with McDavid is his assist total should have an asterisk beside it. There's one thing to get a nice assist to set a guy up, and a lot of people are getting these secondary assists, but how many of McDavid's assists are literally him going through the whole team, pretty much drawing the whole team over and shuffling it over for a tap into a wide open cage that you and I could score. So it's almost like half his assists should almost count as goals.
And this is what I was talking about a couple weeks ago when I mentioned Matt Savoy. Like they keep saying it's hard to play with this guy, but I feel like you just have to move away from him to some sort of open space. And 9 times out of 10, you're gonna have either a tap in or a very, very high danger chance to score. It's crazy.
One other guy that was right up there in the hunt for the Art Ross through most of the year was Celebrini. Didn't quite catch up to Connor, but did get the Sharks record for most points, beating Joe Thornton's total. What more can you say about this kid and where he's at in his career already?
Like what he finishes with 115, so he beats Thornton's record. He's friggin' 19 years old. And the game before that, he only played like 10 or 11 minutes, like so he probably could have pushed it even further. I'm super excited for that team. It's going to be a rival. Edmonton's sort of going to be at the end of their window when that team's coming up. But if they can just keep improving like this, and you have probably the next greatest player already there, already producing like this, it's going to be awesome to watch.
And the leadership qualities he seems to be showing already, like people just love this guy. I saw an interview with his coach after that, and he started tearing up just talking about what a great kid he is, what a coachable player he is. Saw the from Joe Thornton. He put out a bit of a
Yeah, that was
congratulatory
awesome.
message, and you saw the way people responded to him on the Olympics. He seems to just have a charisma, a real likability, and all these leadership qualities to go with his prolific scoring and great
He's
play.
he's the anti McDavid when it comes to the interviews and stuff like that. Like there's actually some personality in it. One thing on the Thornton thing, when you are retired, do you ever think about pulling out a beard like that? Like I love the
Oh,
dedication to that beard.
yeah, he's really leaning into it. He's a guy that seemed to just enjoy his life, even in his playing career, he always seemed, like he was not letting things get too serious, having a good time, and just seems to be another personality that guys are drawn to. You see his relationship with some of the younger guys on the
Some of the
Leafs there
Leafs.
when he was there. So, yeah, another just class act, a total beauty there with Joe Thornton.
He's one of the guys that I wish could have won a cup. Like it, there's certain players like who gives a shit, but when it's the good guys like that, you kind of wish he would have got one, but never worked out.
Speaking of the Canucks, you kind of mentioned that they had it mailed in that last game against the Oilers. And, obviously they had by far the worst record in the league. They've secured the best chances of getting the first overall pick. Somebody's head had to roll after that season, and it turned out to be their GM getting fired after not too far removed from winning the Pacific Division there. So it's been quite a dramatic fall from grace for the Canucks over the last few years.
Yeah, and I mean, we were all over it, right? We were, why would you get rid of Tocchet? This is a guy who's gonna, and clearly he pulled Philly out of the fire this year. But what a dumpster fire. Like, you look at the names that team had that obviously losing Hughes sucks, but I thought they had got a decent return. But I don't know, you got to burn that whole thing down, and I guess the GM's the first guy to go. But like, if you're McKenna, that's got to be a worst case scenario. I know he's from the area and that, but of all the teams that have a shot at the first round pick, I would want to go to any other option.
Yeah, we talked about the Flames being as our favorite choice in those bottom tier teams for him to go to. I still think that would be a great fit. They've got a pretty good young core coming up, and that market would really embrace him. With that
And
Battle
they
of
got
Alberta going again,
and they got the new stadium
they got
coming.
the
That
new,
would be
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. So that would be a great fit. We'll see. Speaking of teams at the bottom, the Leafs did manage to get the fifth worst record. They may keep that first round pick after all.
Yeah.
But looking at the odds, the way that kind of the lottery draft works out, I think they've still only about a 45% chance of keeping that, because they could get bumped. If they get bumped any higher than fifth, then of course the Bruins get that pick, and that would be a nice boost to them as they kind of to speed along their retooling process here that they've got going.
Yeah, the Leafs. So, I mean, I thought they were going to be a lot better. Clearly, I was way off on that one. But then, so the NHLPA had a bunch of their player polls come out, and I don't know if this has any connection to finishing in the bottom five or whatever they finished, but three of the Leafs were in the top five for which players run their social media the best. So with William Nylander being the top vote getter. So maybe it's time to focus on actually playing hockey and not, what fucking suit you're wearing as you're walking into the game and stuff. Like, you look down that list, and now McDavid was on it, but I think it was more to do with sponsorship stuff. But there's nobody on that list that's in a serious playoff series coming up.
Yeah,
Put
I
two and two together.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a coincidence. That's an interesting insight. But Charlie, like we said, playoffs start today. So let's get down to brass tacks here. Let's break down these series. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference. Now, what I've tried to do is rank these series in order of most compelling or most interesting. I'll tell you what I've got. You tell me if you agree, disagree. But in the Eastern Conference, I had Tampa Montreal as sort of the most exciting and compelling series. series. Second, I had Pittsburgh, Philly. Then I had Buffalo, Boston, and in fourth, Carolina, Ottawa. Anything you'd want to change in that order?
Yeah, I like your order there. I'm a little more leaning to the Pittsburgh Philly because I want the Penguins to keep advancing because I think that would be an amazing story. But I think as far as exciting hockey, you're probably nailed it with the Tampa Montreal for sure.
Well, let's start there because I think there's a good
Okay.
chance the winner of this series is your Eastern Conference champion, Tampa Montreal. So you've kind of got the two-time champs against the up-and-coming Canadiens. What do you like in this series? Any storylines or particular things that you're excited to watch unfold?
So I'll give you the breakdown. So FanDuel has the Lightning as a minus 250 favorite, which I think is kind of high. I don't know personally. Montreal actually won the season series 2-1. I kind of feel bad for Montreal because I think I would pick them over every other team in the East, and they kind of got another shitty draw with this. Again, we've already talked about how the playoff seeding works and how it sucks. But I don't know. I have a hard time seeing Montreal get past this veteran team that's I don't know. What do you think? And I mean is it take the next step or is it just another back to the drawing board? The only thing that worries me is Montreal's kind of grit, and it's the same going back to Washington last year. They had a bit of upper hand and then they got pushed around and then that was it.
Yeah, it's a coin flip to me. I was a little surprised when you listed those odds there. I knew Tampa would be favored. With my wings out, the Canadians are definitely like one of the bandwagons or is the bandwagon I'm jumping on from the East. They just have so many players that are fun to watch that are at an exciting stage of their careers. So I'm not saying that gives them a better chance to win, but just in terms of storylines, I'd like to see Demidov, how he steps up in his second playoff. A guy like Slavkovsky, I think, if you're talking X factors, I think that's a guy that's kind of got that super high ceiling when he's playing at his best. We saw him do it in the Olympics, and a guy that can kind of take over a series. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a very physical series, and I think Tampa's going to get the job done. Montreal, this is just going to be another year of experience of getting battle tested, but I feel like it's only a matter of time before they're kind of that team at the top making the run to the Cup Finals. I just don't know if it's this year.
And one of the shittier deals too is Dobson may not even play in this series. I'm assuming he's going to try and fight back to get back into some of it, but that's a big loss for them. I want Montreal to win. I'm just kind of erring on the side of experience here, and I think Cooper's obviously a better coach than St. Louis, and you'll maybe see some of the line matchups and stuff like that. I'm pulling for Montreal, but if I had to put money on it, I think I'd take Tampa and say six.
I think the other thing you got to touch on here when you're talking about playoff hockey in Montreal is that Bell Center atmosphere. Ever since Four Nations, I've kind of fallen in love with that place and the atmosphere for big game hockey, and we saw it again for the games they had against Washington last year. That's another reason I hope Montreal can get it done just to kind of see that atmosphere. But hey, we know we're going to get at least two good games there, and it should be pretty exciting there. Another last point is just on Kucherov. Obviously, he had a phenomenal year here. I was trying to remember kind of what his role on the team was when they won their last two cups, I knew he was a prolific scorer, but I couldn't remember if like more Stamkos was the main guy at the time or Hedman. Kucherov actually led the playoffs in scoring both those years, back-to-back 30-point plus playoff years. He's only the third guy that actually has done that behind Gretzky and Lemieux. So I thought that was an interesting stat.
It is.
So even though sometimes with the body language with Kucherov, you sometimes wonder if he's, just a phenomenal talent, but not as much as a leader. He's shown obviously before that he can be the guy. So after sort of that big regular season that he had, this would be a pretty good, feather in his cap to lead the Lightning to another cup.
And unfortunately for Montreal fans, they're not ultra physical, so he's probably going to have his chance to wheel around a little bit too.
All right, well, let's shift gear to the Battle of Pennsylvania, kind of an old classic Patrick Division rivalry that we used to see
Yeah,
all the time.
that's right.
Pittsburgh, Philly, I guess the main storyline in this one is Crosby, Malkin, Letang, another run at the cup, bolstered by a lot of great young talent and a pretty good system that they're running there. And then, of course, on the Philly side, you've got all these young players. You've got Tocchet sort of bringing the team around and making a pretty great stretch down to the end here. What does Vegas have this at, and what do you what's your thoughts on this series?
So season series was two apiece. They got Pittsburgh at minus 140 to win the series, Philly plus 115. I think the determining factor in this one's going to be what goalies decide to steal a game because I don't think either team has a great goalie. I don't mind Belovs or whatever, but I can't trust Skinner just from little PTSD from that guy. I wish the guy nothing but success, but I just can't trust him in a playoff series. On the Philly side, I don't know. They're so fast, and I don't know if that's going to give Pittsburgh a little bit of an issue. But I don't expect this to be an ultra physical series. I think it's going to be, it's still going to be tough. But I think Philly, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning the Flyers as much as I want Pittsburgh to win, just because they've kind of been in this playoff mode for the last month or so. I don't know. What do you see?
I'm kind of leaning Penguins here. I think the way they kind of run all four lines, the style of play, and then just the Crosby factor for me is kind of the main difference maker versus all the younger guys there in Philly. I feel like there's something kind of magical about this season for the Pens. You know, nobody really expected them to even make it in the playoffs. We were talking about whether Crosby and Malkin should get traded somewhere else to have another chance at a run. So I like them to win at least one series, and then who knows after that. But I think it's going to be some really entertaining hockey and cool to see this rivalry get ramped up again.
Yeah, I'm kind of banking on the we're playing with house money kind of deal with the Flyers because I mean even 2 months ago everyone was fire the coach. We got to change things. I don't love their goaltending. I just think some of these young kids don't know any better and they're just gonna go balls out.
Yeah, and I would say like we're forcing ourselves to make a prediction here because that's just a fun way to do it. But there, especially in the Eastern Conference, there's no outcome that I would be shocked at in any of these
No,
series,
exactly.
right? Like, you know, you could easily make an argument for any team to win any of these series. So they're all pretty close. It could go either way. You know, it's a bit of an educated guess at the end of the day. But for me, it's more, you know, the fun part's looking at players that have a chance to kind of improve their legacy or create their legacy, interesting storylines to follow, and then see where it goes from there. I guess in terms of storylines on the regular season, probably one of the more compelling ones was the resurgence or emergence of the Buffalo Sabres, ending the NHL's longest playoff drought. Now my Red Wings are the proud owners of that one, so thanks Sabres. But yeah, what a crazy run it's been. You know, they fire their GM at the start of the year who put this thing together. There was points early in the season where people were talking about Tage Thompson and Tuck and some of these guys as trade pieces and as part of a retooling. And then next thing you know, it all comes together and they have this dream season and they've got the city of Buffalo just buzzing heading into this playoffs.
Yeah, back in December, the big rumor was Edmonton was gonna make a run for Tuck, and I was like, this is exactly what we need, a big power forward, probably top two beard in the league. Like you can notice the density on that sucker from sitting up in the cheap seats. And then all of a sudden everything just clicks. They had a stretch from January to I believe the start of March where only the cup winning Red Wings had a better win loss record in like the last 40 years. Like it was just a historic friggin' run. So they're only a minus 180 favorite to win the series. Boston actually won the season series 3-1. But if you look into that, a couple of those games were at the start when it was not looking so good for the Sabres. Boston for me is probably one of the most overachieving teams this year. And I just don't know where the offense is going to come from. Obviously, that top line is pretty solid, but the depth of Buffalo, like they can throw three lines at you that can do damage. And I don't know. I like the Sabres here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people think. I think Swayman obviously is the best goalie in the series, and I think he could steal a couple games for Boston. I think the biggest storyline to watch for, and as a Lions fan, I remember this scenario when the Lions finally, became a dominant team and got that number one seed in the NFC a couple years ago. It's almost like then there was this letdown when the playoffs started because all year they had been praised of what a great team they've been, what a great coach Dan Campbell is. They're getting their tires pumped all year. Then they get that bye week and they just shit the bed against Washington. So I guess I kind of see a little bit of parallels in the Sabres situation where they've just kind of been this team that has struggled for a long time, finally doing well. Everybody giving them their props all year. Do you worry about them now? Now that the regular season's over, sort of feeling like they've already accomplished something and maybe having a bit of a letdown. And a lot of times these teams that are used to being underdogs don't play the role of, don't do well in the role of favorites. I do think that they've got more of the depth. They've got enough depth. Obviously in hockey, you've got the 7-game series versus the single elimination in football. So if they do stumble out of the gates or have a little bit of that tightness coming out, I think over the course of the series, they've definitely got just such a deeper roster. While they don't have a lot of playoff experience as a team, they've got a lot of those high
Winning
quality
experience.
character guys and,
Yeah.
and winning experience. So I don't know.
I was just gonna say, how insane would it be if it was we got a Montreal Buffalo series in the second round too? Like I just pray it because that would be it would probably be terrible for the NHL ratings, but just as a East Coaster and just two classic teams. But I agree with you. I think it'll be closer than it should be, but I just think Buffalo's gonna have too much for Boston.
Okay, well, let's round out the Eastern Conference with the series we had ranked last here, Carolina and Ottawa. You know, it's probably going to be good hockey. There's just something about these two teams that for me, I just can't get emotionally connected. The style of play that they play is not exactly what I would consider the most exciting brand of hockey, but a couple of storylines that I thought were interesting is this the year Carolina finally gets over the hump? With Florida not there, they've made it to the conference finals several times. I think they've won the first round the last 7 or 8 years in a row. On the flip side, you've got Ottawa just coming in red hot. All their big guns are firing on all cylinders. You've got the Brady Kachuk factor, bringing that swagger and confidence to the lineup. I don't know. I could see this kind of going either way as well, even though the Canes had a big advantage in the single season points.
So this is the hot upset pick, and for a number one seed, they're only a minus 170 favorite to win this series. Which, if you're a betting man, that I mean, you would automatically have to go to Ottawa and place some money down on that. Ottawa won the season series 2-1. My only thing, like it, so if Ottawa is going to pull this off, they got to just pound the shit out of them, right? Like that's how Florida did it last year. You got to get in their face because Carolina is not a big team. They're not a physical team. Their defense and speed. And my only question for Ottawa is whether or not they're going to be able to score enough if Carolina does get rolling. I don't see Ottawa pulling it off, but I could see this going seven for sure because I think Ottawa is going to get in their face, make it uncomfortable, and grind out a couple of those 2-1 wins. I would love to see Ottawa pull it off because I don't enjoy watching Carolina. I think the whole atmosphere of that building's bullshit. Like I think it's all fake. I think the team's soft as puppy shit, as they say. I don't think they're built for success.
Well, I don't carry quite as much hatred towards the team as you do, and I know you've been throwing them shade ever since we
My whole
started this
thing is
podcast here.
all you ever hear is how brilliant the GM is and all this stuff. But if you're going into every playoff year where you're the softer team, you're not physical, you're not tough, and you don't change that, stop telling me how smart you are.
You heard that, Hurricanes. Charlie's thrown the gauntlet down. It's time to prove him wrong. But I also think it'll be a close series. I think the Hurricanes will win. But I would actually love to see an Ottawa upset and see some of those guys make a run, keep another Canadian team in the playoffs for a little longer. But I don't see it happening. So just recapping our picks, we both like Tampa Bay and a long, bitter series there. You're leaning Philly. I'm leaning Pittsburgh in what should be a exciting brand of hockey. We both think Buffalo's going to get the job done against Boston, but Boston's probably going to sneak a few out there with their experience they have with some of those guys. And then in probably one of the more boring series of the first round, we're both predicting Carolina to get the job done against Ottawa. All right. Well, let's take a little break before we get into the Western Conference and do a little trivia time.
All right, so this week, as the puck is about to drop on another year of Stanley Cup playoff hockey, and the chase for the greatest trophy in sports begins, I'm going to drop a playoff trivia question for you.
All right.
So, in NHL history, which player holds the record for the most points in a single round? So it could be first round, second round, but this is the most points ever in one single playoff series. I'll give you one quick hint. It was in the 80s, so you can only imagine the amount of points being scored. And just to lay it out there, it's not Gretzky, because that would be way too obvious. So, yeah, we'll give you and our listeners a little bit of time to think about that. Most points in a single playoff series.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a good one. I will give that some thought and look forward to coming back to that on the outro. Okay, Charlie, we're back. Western Conference here. So let me tell you how I've seeded these in terms of the most exciting to least exciting matchups. Probably the most obvious choice here, Dallas, Minnesota. We've seen this coming for months. The second and third best records in the NHL, I believe, battling it out. So that should be a dandy. I've got Edmonton and Anaheim as second. I just feel like any series with Connor McDavid in his prime has got to be right up there. Then I've got Colorado versus LA. I think LA could be sneaky. And then lastly, I have Vegas versus Utah. I'm kind of excited to see Utah, but for some reason, Vegas is kind of my Carolina of the West. I just don't tend to enjoy watching them play all that much. But
No,
would you
I'm
make
with
any
you there.
switches there?
Well, only just from a fandom side. I have Edmonton and Anaheim as my top, just because I think it's going to be crazy high event hockey. But I can't really argue with anything else you said there. I don't agree. I would probably actually have Colorado and LA last because I think that's going to be a bloodbath. But I'm with you. I'm not a big Vegas fan either, but I think you pretty much nailed it for sure.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I had those two series as a bit of a coin flip, but I had to slot one in, so I went with the powerhouse Avalanche in there. But let's start at the top here. Like I said, Dallas versus Minnesota, two of the best teams in the league, Stanley Cup contenders going toe to toe first round. What are you looking at? What's most exciting to you about this series?
So this was actually the closest as far as a betting side of it goes. This is so Dallas is minus 115 to win the series. Minnesota minus 102. So you're paying the juice on either side. I don't know. It's too bad. It's too bad that these two teams have to face off because I think this could probably, like you said, probably be the best first round series. And they had the big dust up there a week and a half ago where it's almost like they were setting the tone. Like this game doesn't really mean shit overall, but we're going to make sure that the message is sent for 2 weeks from now when we actually drop the puck. I don't find either of these teams ultra physical. Like, I think your skilled guys are going to have lots of room to play, and it's hard to trust the Dallas goaltending. I don't know, like just from the last 2 years, and maybe that's part of a coaching thing, but I almost give the edge to Minnesota. I just think they have more depth, but also a little bit more toughness and better defense, I think.
I'm kind of leaning Minnesota a little bit here. I think we all expected Dallas to be here in around this spot at the end of the regular season. But what's most compelling to me is the Wild story. Because again, when I think back to our pre-regular season preview, there was a lot of uncertainty whether Kaprizov was even going to sign there.
Yeah.
It looked like he was going to be on the move, and it was almost going to be a bit of a retool for the Wild. They lock him in there. Then Guerin gets Quinn Hughes in a bit of a blockbuster deal. Then he goes on to GM the US to the gold medal. If they make a run here, I think from a legacy standpoint, you don't usually bring a GM into it, but it's almost like the confidence and swagger and I guess the strategic moves that Guerin has made to create this team and keep all these guys together could be a pretty good feather in his cap from a legacy standpoint if they make a run here.
It'll be like my dad's old Ken Morrow trivia question. Bill Guerin will be the new Kenny Morrow. Yeah, that would be. I mean, I don't think you could have a better better season, right? Like that's crazy. I agree. I'm leaning Minnesota. I just think they have the better overall team and team depth. Now, who knows? Like Wallstedt's never been tested in this tense of an environment. If there's one guy that can totally take over a series, it's Rantanen for sure. And I think after last year's kind of falling off a cliff there when they got to Edmonton series, he's going to be looking for a little payback. I just like the Quinn Hughes factor this year. And Minnesota's kind of I mean, it sucks. They'll probably have to play Colorado next, but they're kind of my dark horse to make a run here.
Yeah, I always find when it's a coin flip to me, I just go with the team that I want to win more and the team that
Yeah.
has the best player. And I think probably Quinn Hughes and Kaprizov are the two best overall players in this series, with like Rantanen close behind. But for those reasons, I'm gonna pick the Wild here. Let's shift gears to your top series, and Edmonton starts their run at a third straight Stanley Cup Finals appearance against the up-and-coming Anaheim Ducks, and the Ducks kind of have this vibe of like what Montreal was last year, sort of a great young core getting into the playoffs for the first time in a while, playing with house money. I expect lots of goals in this series, and when I was thinking about McDavid, to the trivia question with the most points in a single series, I feel like that could be up for grabs here because you could see Edmonton scoring 5, 6 goals a game in this series. So he could
So,
have he could
so,
have a good crack at.
oh, 100%. So Edmonton's a minus 245 favorite. Ducks almost 2-1 to win the series. Edmonton won the season series 2-1, but in just 3 games there was 26 goals scored. So there's not a lot of defense being played. We called this, right? Like we were all over the Ducks saying we didn't. I don't know if I expected them to make the playoffs this year, but they were one of our teams that we thought would be making a big jump with the coaching, with all the young talent. You were all over Cutter Gauthier is having a breakout year. Guy ends up scoring 40 goals. I think this is going to be like, as far as if you want to just stop in and watch a hockey game, this is going to be high event, high scoring, kind of whoever scores last wins. I'm pumped. And like you're talking about the points. So if McDavid can put up some ridiculous numbers, I was looking at the Conn Smythe odds just before we got on here. He's plus 1,600 to win the Conn Smythe. So if you expect them, which I do, to make a deep run, you got to be throwing $100 on that right now. because it's never going to be lower.
It'd be nice if you could get one when they actually win the cup. But yeah, what's the Leon watch like? How's he doing and from a health status?
So I was actually on my way home from work today, was listening to an Oilers podcast, and they said he did the optional skate, he did the team practice, and then he stayed out after, almost like he's trying to prove to the medical staff, like, I'm ready to go here. They're still being pretty coy with it, but for me, if they can win game one or game two or whatever without him, let him heal up. But it looks like he's probably going to play in this series at some point, so that's good. The crazy thing about Edmonton is, nobody really talks about the trade deadline stuff with them, but getting Dickinson, getting Connor Murphy, who's apparently reminded Darnell Nurse how to play defense. Like they're rock solid as a second pair. But then this Colton Dock, who they have slated in their fourth line, like this guy can skate. He hits everything. Like he led Chicago in hits. He can skate, he can score a bit, and he's gonna hit you no matter what. And I think going up against a young team like that, that fourth line is going to be a major, major factor in this series because they're going to hit every time they have a chance, and I think the Ducks are just going to get run out of this. I don't see this lasting long.
No, I think it'll be fun hockey, but I think the Oilers could win this series without Leon, no problems. It probably won't come into it this series, but ultimately the Oilers' goaltending is probably going to be one of the main storylines as they get deeper. Obviously, moving on from Skinner, I'm not sure how much of an upgrade Ingram's going to be for them, but we'll
The
see.
thing about the thing about Ingram is he's just consistent, and that's all they need. And on that Oilers thing, they made a pretty funny point that, if they somehow were to make a final or end up winning, they will end up winning a Stanley Cup or whatever, however far they go, with a goalie who they traded future considerations for. Like they still can't solve this goaltending thing, but maybe this year just being consistent will be enough.
Well, will be fun to watch out. I think my circadian rhythm's gonna just take a beating this week because every one of the Edmonton Anaheim games, or the first three, are weeknights at 10 o'clock. But we will soldier on here. All right, next up we've got Colorado, LA. Charlie, I feel like this is one of the more quiet President's Trophy runs we've seen, just in the sense of wire to wire. Colorado
Yeah.
kind of put some distance between them and everybody else right at the start of the season, and then pretty much had it on autopilot. So as great as they've been with all the tight races in the East and the Pacific, we've kind of not talked a lot about Colorado. And yeah, here we are at the playoffs, and they're ready to go.
Yeah, they're the biggest favorite in the first round, minus 530 to win the series. LA at almost 4-1. Colorado won the season series 3-0. And you're right, like they got out of the gate so fast and it was just no looking back. But to touch on something you said earlier, like Bill Guerin has the dream season. Wouldn't this just be an absolute nightmare for McKinnon missing the open net? And then, I don't think they will suffer a first round loss, but could you imagine that as a worst season of all time?
Well, in LA, I think back to those Edmonton series, they just have this way of this sort of collapsing on you defensively. And, they steal a game here or there. All of a sudden, the Avs start gripping the stick a little bit tighter and it gets up in their head a little bit. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's the only I'm just trying to envision a way that LA might make this close.
And so LA played Edmonton a week ago, and they did exactly what you said. They got a lead. It was 1-0, and then they just completely shut it down. And if you can get okay goaltending and you're that committed to team defense, you never know. I just think Colorado's so deep, and they've got so much firepower coming at you. It's always hard to predict a sweep, but I think this is probably gonna be a sweep.
Colorado already was comfortably the number one seed. Then they pick up Kadri, they pick up TJ Hughes, one of the top NCAA players. And you sort of like, how much more depth could they
Yeah.
have? I think there's probably some moves I'm not even thinking of. I think there was a couple other trade deadline guys that they picked up, but it's like
Well,
they're
they picked up Nick Waugh from the Leafs, which
right.
is a nothing move, but that's another, like, their depth at center is ridiculous.
Yeah, so it'll take a bit of a miracle for the Kings to make that close and pull it off. Anze Kopitar's final season, he gets at least another bite at the apple here. So we'll see. We'll see if he can provide a little inspiration. Ultimately, probably won't be enough. Take it down the home stretch here in the West. We've got Vegas versus Utah, the Mammoth in the playoffs for the first time. That'll be exciting to see what that crowd and that atmosphere is like. We've got the battle-tested Golden Knights coming in with a new coach, pretty hot since Tortorella came in there. What are your thoughts? What are you looking for in this series?
So this one's pretty tight too. The betting line, we got Vegas minus 170 to win the series, Utah plus 142. Utah actually won the season series 2-1, but that could be, the Cassidy effect early on in the season. But I watched Utah play Edmonton a couple weeks ago when they came back. It was another one of those 80s style last goal wins kind of thing. And I don't know, if I'm Vegas, I'm a little nervous about the speed of Utah. Utah's goaltending doesn't instill confidence, but I don't know. I think Vegas is going to have to really figure out how to slow them down because they do have speed and talent up front. If I was going to pick an upset in the first round, I think this would probably be it. But I'm going to factor in the Tortorella aspect of it because I think you can probably light a fire under the Golden Knights at least for one round. I don't see them going deep, but I don't know. It's a tough call. What are you thinking?
I think Vegas is going to get the job done. I kind of see Utah like Anaheim, where a great group for the future, and it's going to be a great chance for them to get some playoff experience. I think they get a couple wins, but I think they're a year away from kind of competing in a major way. I'm fascinated to watch Mitch Marner. We've seen
Yeah.
some great playoff moments from him, some brutal playoff moments. We've seen big game moments in best on best play. I don't know why I keep wanting to see him, play great in the playoffs and kind of prove the doubters wrong and change that narrative around him. Maybe this will be the year. I was going to get your opinion because at the West, everybody was kind of shitting on for how low the point totals were and where some of these teams were getting in from. But I could make an argument, or in my mind, the top 5 teams from the West would scare me more than any teams in the East. Vegas is not a team I would want to play. If it was my team playing them, I wouldn't want to play Edmonton, Dallas, Minnesota, or Colorado. So as weak as that conference was, I do feel like they're almost the top end talent is coming from the West.
I would agree with the Colorado, Edmonton, Minnesota, Dallas. Vegas are the fucking loser point merchants. Like they would actually be 13th in the West if it wasn't for those loser points. But having said that, I also would much rather play the Flyers or the Penguins than have to play Vegas. That's a good point. I never really thought about that. The top end is definitely in the West.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds. So let's just do a little recap. I think we're both leaning, maybe partly with our hearts and our emotions, with Minnesota
Yeah.
over Dallas. I think we both think Edmonton's going to make short work of the Ducks. Colorado's going to make short work of the Kings. I'm leaning Vegas. You're, kind of going a bit of a dark horse on Utah, but for the most part,
I'm gonna take Utah.
yeah, okay. Well,
I'm taking the Mammoth.
that'll be our swing series for the West.
What
Uh
one side bet here for over under Mitch Marner hits in the first round. I'll set it at 3.5.
I'm taking the under on that one. Yeah, I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna ease into this thing.
I love it.
All right. Do you want to give us a Stanley Cup final prediction here before we end the playoff preview and head to the report card?
Yeah, it's going to be a repeat of the early 2000s. I'm taking Edmonton and Carolina, with Edmonton finally winning the Stanley Cup.
All right. I am going to stick with my preseason prediction, which was Colorado and Carolina. Really no reason to, I guess, change my pick there. But my bandwagon
Old
picks in
Chalk
the
Brown.
my bandwagon picks teams that I'm on is Edmonton and Montreal. So that's the matchup I'm cheering for in the finals. A classic Canadian showdown with a lot of exciting players.
My logic is I've talked the most shit about Carolina, so it only fits that they would probably end up beating Edmonton in the finals. But I'm taking the Oilers.
All right, buddy, that was a great preview. I am fired right up for this thing to start. Let's switch gears from the playoffs and go to our weekly report card.
I've been reviewing your work. Quite frankly, it stinks. These reports you handed in, it's almost as if you have no business training at all.
All right, I got an A plus for Joe Bowen. He just wrapped up his broadcasting career, voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs radio, and then part-time when he had to fill in for the live broadcast. 44 years as a broadcaster. He did 3,834 Leaf games. You know, I'm not a Leaf fan, but something about that guy's voice and just his enthusiasm, you know, calling the games, and obviously the Holy Mackinac catchphrase. Uh, just another one of those guys that you knew growing up and just got used to hearing him all the time. So great career, and he definitely will be missed because I don't think there's guys like that out there anymore. So an A plus for Joe Bowen.
A B for the Protas brothers in Washington, Ilya and Alexei. Alexei Protas, already an emerging stars with the Capitals, had a 30-goal season. Ilya joined the team late in the year, and it was cool to see those two set each other up for a goal. We're going to see a lot of them. That's going to be a cool brotherly connection for the Capitals for years to come. They're both 6'6" specimens. And like I said, Alexei's already established. Ilya's looks like he's going to be almost as good. So it'll be cool to see those two connecting in Washington for a while.
When I saw this on your list, I wanted to say, as soon as the Calder Trophy odds come out next year and this guy's on it, bet that guy. Because I went and saw him play for, he's playing for Hershey. I was watching Rochester Hershey. This guy is in on every offensive chance for his team. He's going to get crazy ice time because in the few games that he did play, he produced. Calder, I'm calling it right now, Ilya Protas.
I like it. And Charlie, do you think these two could make a run at the most combined points by brothers in a career? And do you know which two brothers currently hold that record?
It's the Gretzky brothers, because I think was it Brent or Keith had like 3 points?
Brent had 4 points, and yes, you're right. Yeah, so
little ways to go there, but
yeah, but it'll be interesting to follow. Okay.
All right, I got another A for Josh Hockett. I don't know if you saw this guy fight last weekend, but he's a UFC heavyweight. He's currently 9-0, and it's funny because he's almost like 98% WWF guy on the mic. This guy is probably the most cringy guy ever in the history of the UFC for doing this sort of WWF shtick where he's trying to sound like Muhammad Ali doing all this rhyming and shit, which is fine. But if you're not a good fighter, no one gives a shit. Well, he went out and put on a 15-minute display of just trading bombs with the 5th-ranked heavyweight in the world. He got the decision. This guy is an absolute star. I don't know how long his career is going to be if you're just going to stand and bang for 15 minutes. But if you get a chance to look this guy up, he's absolutely hilarious. And I hope that he can keep winning. So an A for Josh Hockett.
There's almost nothing more compelling in sports than a super cocky guy that tells you he's going to kick your ass, tells you he's going to beat you, and then goes out and does that. I think that's why McGregor, was such a
Exactly.
star for that era, and that'll be interesting to watch. I'll have to start following in on him a little more closely. I'm going with a D for the caddy jumpsuits at Masters. Last week I was singing the praises of the Masters and what a great tournament it is, what a great broadcast it is. But I got to step in for the caddies because have you seen these outfits that they make the caddies wear? They look like they're more well suited to be skydiving out of a plane or going to repaint your rec room or
Beekeeping.
something.
They're doing some beekeeping.
But I mean, it gets pretty toasty down in Georgia, even in April. And I just think it's unfair to make these caddies wear these big, thick jumpsuits. Like, maybe I can see you want to differentiate them from the players, but they've got to have something a little bit more breathable and enjoyable to wear in that Georgia heat.
Do you think any of them are going commando under those suits? They almost have to, right?
You would have to, yeah, yeah. It's D for the mandatory caddy jumpsuits at the Masters.
All right, I'm sticking with hockey. I got an A for Rasmus Dahlin. So all the talk for the Norris Trophy has been Rowensky or Evan Bouchard. Rightfully so. Those guys had fantastic years, but Rasmus Dahlin on an unbelievable Buffalo team, 74 points, 19 goals plus 18, and he's playing 24 minutes a game and quarterbacking a pretty effective Buffalo power play. I just think this guy needs more props, and I think he's a major reason that Buffalo took the jump that they did this year. So big A for old Rasmus.
Nice. I'm gonna go with an A for Max Plant, who recently won the Hobie Baker Trophy for the most outstanding NCAA hockey player. Now, Charlie, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, so even though the Wings had an epic collapse to miss the playoffs, got beat 8-1 in their final game to the Panthers, what I'm going to choose to focus on is this kid that we drafted in the second round a couple years ago that won the Hobie Baker. Great job, Max. He's going to be going back he plays for Duluth, Minnesota. I'm going to be going back another year to just get a little more seasoning, play with his brothers there. But starting to look like a bit of a sneaky steal in that draft from a couple years ago, and a guy I'm looking forward to seeing in a Red Wings uniform down the road. So A+ to Max Plant, and congrats on the Hobie Baker.
All right. Again, sticking with hockey, I got an A plus. I'm giving out all A's this week. An A plus for both Rick Bowness and Todd McClellan. I don't know if you saw their post, kind of exit interviews. I just love the passion and Bowness. I'm actually surprised that they're bringing him back because like he looked like he was ready to fight a cameraman and start crying. But I love that these guys care so much, and it is cool that Bonus is getting to come back. And then it was almost like McClellan saw the bonus interview and was like, "Hold my beer, because I'm gonna take it up a notch too." Like as a Wings fan, when you see that, like, what are you thinking? Like how? For me, it was like, well, how did you not motivate this team to win a couple games down the stretch?
I guess what I heard the McClellan interview, I thought, well, yeah, he's expressing kind of the way the
Every
frustration we
fan
all
is.
all feel. But I also think as the coach of the team, isn't there some accountability, like
Exactly.
especially with Bonus saying these guys don't care, these guys don't care. Isn't that partially your job as a coach to, work the psychology, push the buttons, motivate guys, do the things you need to do to get them to care and get them to play hard?
Yeah, 100%. Like as Edmonton's got Knobloch, and he might be challenging McDavid for the least personality in the league. So when I saw Bonus and McClellan, I'm like, how do you not run through a wall for these guys? So just an A for the coach meltdowns.
And the only thing I'll add on to that with that topic, because the guy that I thought did it on the flip side is Green in Ottawa,
Mm,
basically called out Kachuk at one point with like 10 or 12 games to go and basically challenged him to go get in a fight.
yeah.
Kachuk drops the gloves, opening face off against Anders Lee, gets the team going, and that seemed to be the spark that got them going on their run. he did what he needed to do to kind of call these guys out and get them playing with some pride. So I got to give him a little props for that. Anyways, back to me. I've got an F for retail sales assistants. So Charlie, the nice weather coming around, I had to go to the mall, get some shorts, get a few t-shirts, restock the summer wardrobe, and of course the usual thing, you kind of walk into a store and how you doing? Just so you know, everything's, buy one get 50% off. And so you're like, okay, you know what, I did see the 8-foot sign in the window as I walked in, but thanks for the heads up. So that doesn't really bother me. But then, like, literally a minute later, you doing okay? Need any help with sizes? And I'm sort of like, no, I know how to like sort through the medium, small, larges here on my own, but thank you. And then 30 seconds later, like, still doing okay. And I'm like, yeah, believe it or not, I haven't had a clothing crisis in the last 30 seconds since you asked me last time.
Oh,
So
that's
just trust
awesome.
me when I say, the more you ask me how I'm doing and if I need any help, the less likely I am to buy something. So just pump the brakes a bit to all the retail salespeople out there. Give us some room to breathe. Let us make our choice, and we'll let you know if we need some help. So F to retail sales assistants.
I have one question, one follow-up. What bothers you more, the "are you doing okay" or the "how are your first bites" when you go to a restaurant?
I think the "are you doing okay" in the retail bugs me worst because sometimes the "how are your first bites" at the restaurant is a chance for me to order another beer before she gets too far. But it's
That's
usually
fair.
pretty unnecessary as well.
But have you ever sent anything back at a restaurant in your life?
And usually they come up to you where you've like had 3 French fries. How are the first bite? These fries are horrible. Send it back.
All right, finishing off for me, I got another A. I'm very positive this week.
Easy
For
marker.
Mike Trout, he's finally back. The guy has suffered so many injuries. This guy was on a trajectory to be like the next Mickey Mantle. Just got completely railroaded by injuries. Through 20 games, 7 home runs. He's got 16 ribbies. OPS of just under 1,000. It's just great. I love seeing the best players do well, and it's just nice to see that he's kind of back, and hopefully he can stay healthy because I love watching the guy play. So, A for Mike Trout.
Yeah, and I've got an A for another guy that's back on the hockey front that maybe fell off the radar a bit, and that's Steve Stamkos. Kind of late in his career, putting up a fairly quiet 40-goal season. Unless you're a Nashville Predators fans, you're probably not watching a lot of their games. And when I had seen that he had crossed the 40-goal threshold, I was pretty impressed. For a guy that's had a great career, but seemed like he was on the last stretch here, he's still got something to prove and some gas left in the tank. So congrats to Stamkos for a great year.
Yeah, he went on a bit of a heater there to end the season. They almost snuck into the playoffs, so that's a good shout.
Okay, that wraps up the weekly report card. Time for the home stretch here, Charlie. Let's go back to the trivia question. Give us a recap here, and then we'll see if I can get the answer.
All right, so playoffs kicking off today. So my question to you was, which player holds the record for the most points in a single playoff series?
All right, Charlie. I kind of debated how to approach this, and I was going to come across and try to sound like I was really smart. But in fact, because I was curious about this myself, because I thought Connor McDavid might have the chance to break the record, I
Yeah,
actually checked it before this episode to see what the record was and was surprised to see Rick Middleton from the
you got
Bruins
it.
as the record holder with 19 points in a single series.
19 points in a 7 game series against the Buffalo Sabres in 1983. He had 9 goals, 10 assists. And yeah, I was pretty shocked too. I figured it would be the usual suspects. Actually, Leon has more points in a playoff series than McDavid. He had 15 against the Flames a couple years ago. I was shocked though. I looked into Middleton. I expected a more prolific career, but he actually is under 1,000 points, not a Hall of Famer. I kind of always looked at him as a Hall of Famer. Hall of Fame duster, though, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, and obviously some big moments in his career, but yeah, I was pretty surprised Gretzky was there with 18 and second, but you would think Gretzky or Lemieux would have had that lead by a fairly long margin.
Especially in the high scoring era that they were in, you would think so. But yeah, Rick
Yeah.
Middleton, and I can't see that being beat anytime soon, but you never know.
Well, I figured the Anaheim series would have to go 6 or 7 games. You
That's the
know,
thing,
if
right?
McDavid averaged 3 points a game, he would still need that to go seven
Still be
games to
short.
get it done, unless he had, a couple 5 point games mixed in there, which is not inconceivable. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a tough one to beat. So we'll see. Other than that, we've kind of covered it all in the hockey world. I did want to give a shout out to Denver for winning another natty. They got the job done against Wisconsin. Congrats to them. NCAA hockey is over. All that's left now is the Stanley Cup playoffs. So we've got a pretty good run here. Charlie, we are going to be off next week. We're heading to
We
Toronto
are.
for a Jays game, meet up with some of the gang here, and should have maybe some live footage we can
Oh, yeah,
record from our time in Toronto.
we'll get something out for sure. Hopefully the Jays can figure out how to hit between now and next Saturday because pitching's been great, offense not so much. I had one more question for you, and this is kind of a bonus trivia, and you don't got to think about it too much. But do you know who led the Calgary Flames in points this year? I'll give you the total, and if you can name this, I will buy you a beer at the Rogers Center. He had 46 points,
Wow,
which has got
it's
to be an all-time back since the Newsy Lalonde days. Nobody's led it.
I was thinking Kadri, but obviously that would be too
So
obvious.
yeah, so his total gets removed because he was traded. So I'm talking end of the season guy on the roster, most points. You probably will not get it, so I'll
Okay.
just because you probably don't even know who this guy is. But
Yeah.
Michael Coronado led the Flames this year
Wow.
with 36 points. So if there's a
Definitely.
team that needs Gavin McKenna, this is the team.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have got that one, but that is pretty interesting. So, all
Sorry,
right, well,
Jeff Bradley.
all right, well, great breaking it down with you, Charlie. We're 2 hours away from puck drop to the Stanley Cup playoffs, so let's sit back, enjoy the games, and we'll catch up on official podcast in a couple weeks. But we'll see you in Toronto next weekend. Until
Can't wait,
then,
buddy.
okay, bye for now.